Eric, can you hear me okay back there? We're good on the, I don't want to talk too loud. Well, good evening. My name is Steve Drew. I'm the new chief here at Newport News. I say new, but I have been here a little over 2 months back and forth, and I'm very humbled and honored to have this position and to be able to work with the great men and women of the Newport News Police Department in this city community. Very, very blessed. I know there are a lot of things, a lot of other things that you could be doing on a Wednesday night and talking to me at 6:30. So I appreciate every one of you for taking the time to come out and spend time with me tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about where I'm going with the police department, what my vision is as we move forward. But I also, just like I've done with each division in this department, I'd like to hear from you. What is it that you want from your police department? What do you expect? What do you need? What do you want from your chief? Thoughts and ideas. And I will be as open and transparent as I can. Is that fair? So again, I want to say thank you. Now, let's get rid of let's address one issue in the room. I was going to say elephant, but I don't think elephant's the right word. I did try deer. So I think there's another meeting that was going to happen and maybe got blended in. So I'm just going to have a quick moment about that. I will say this. I want to make sure that I hear from you, right? I don't want that topic to overflow the message I want to at least share with you and get your input and ideas for our department. But I'm going to ask our city manager, my boss, Cindy Rohlf, to come forward and address that issue. I'm sure she has much more information about it than I do. But let me give a round of applause, and then we'll get started, okay?
Before we have a discussion, I'm just trying to get some idea how many folks here are here on the deer urban archery issue. How many are trying to get information?
Everything, but that's part of it.
Pardon me?
We're here for everything, but that's
Okay, and that's what, as the chief said, we really don't want that to overshadow, because there's a lot of things that I think are important also. So the information that I wanted to provide that may help in terms of the discussion is just to let you know, I know there have been a lot of issues and concerns, and we've also got the Director of Parks and Recreation here with me, and obviously have some of our parks and park rangers here with us as well that address any questions. But we just wanted to let you know, we know there's been a lot of discussion, a lot of concern in terms of the urban archery program, deer hunting in the neighborhoods, concerns about safety, what does it mean to your community, all those kinds of things. On the other side, we've also had a number of complaints over the years, over the months regarding the damage that deer could do in the communities, issues when people run into deer with their cars and damage to their cars and things being injured, people being injured. So there's a kind of a conflict on both ways, and we hear from both sides of the community. The city in no way is trying to insert ourselves into that process of taking a position pro-hunting or against hunting. That was not the issue. There is a program, though, that has come into question. It's called urban archery. But first, before I talk about that, and Michael, please feel free to join me and jump in. Currently, state law allows hunting for deer with bow and arrow from about November 1st through January. Roughly January 1st, that is allowed. It's got nothing to do with the city. There is nothing that we can do to stop that. That is a state program. I don't remember the time frame. It was somewhere back in 2003, 2004. The state took action that basically, and I believe changed the Constitution, that basically said there is a right to hunt in Virginia.
our property. They can just cover our property.
No, absolutely not. And that's where some of the, I say, bad information or misinformation that's being put out there. I'll let Michael speak directly to some of the state requirements in terms of the hunting. The other piece I briefly wanted to mention, there's an urban archery program. All that does is give a longer time frame for people to be allowed to hunt deer with bow and arrow. Same restrictions on it. You have to have permission of property owners. All of those things still apply to that hunting, but it does lengthen the time that they can be, and it's also, I believe, antlers. Deers without antlers that can be hunted. So that's the only thing that we were looking at. When we went back, and that was a program that we had talked with the state about participating in. there's some question administratively whether or not the city has actually been included in that program. So at this point in time, to give us an opportunity, because that would have started September 1st, so we can clear up some of the information out there, we're going to step back away from that program and not participate in that program. And that will give us an opportunity to talk to citizens, talk in the neighborhoods, get our parks and rec folk out there, have neighbors talking to each other as much as you can, get some feedback to us so that we can, if there's a decision that, or there needs to be further discussion, we can have those discussions and come back with a recommendation to whether or not council thinks we should participate in that program. I can tell you there are both sides of the issue. There absolutely are. We are not inserting ourselves. But that urban archery program is probably close to 60 communities across the state participate. Some of our surrounding areas. It is a tool that is available. One of the neighborhoods talked to the state came down and said this is a tool that is available to us. We talked to the state and said this is what the city needs to do if the city wants to participate or allow urban archery during this season. That's all the city's intent was to do at the request of some citizens that want to do it in their community, that people can opt in or opt out. It's not mandatory. It's not required in any community. And I'll let Michael speak to some of the restrictions to maybe get to some of that information that's out there that people be on their property or that folks are in danger, those kinds of issues that may relay some of those particular concerns. Michael, you want to talk to this? Yes, ma'am.
My question is, I just heard you say that. Does that mean that the city of Newport is opting out of this on September 1st of 2018? That we are not doing this?
Can you repeat your question? What do you
I'll
mean?
repeat it for you.
Her question.
My question was, what I was understanding her say, and I want to make sure I'm clear on that, you said that we were opting out of this on September the 1st, 2018, that our city is not going to be participating.
Yes, we could say opting out, but we will not be participating
Yes.
starting
And
September
so you-
1st.
So my next question is, because I did talk to the state about this, okay? And he told me that the city manager, which is you,
Yes.
that you have to send him a letter stating that we are opting out of this.
Okay, well, let me, and I don't mind saying, no, I don't mind saying this, when it came up, it became an issue, we talked about it and discussed it, and the recommendation was, based on the feedback we were getting from citizens and the concerns, that we wanted to opt the city into the program. Again, with our understanding, it's voluntary. You know, neighborhoods can choose to participate if they want to or not. You don't have to allow it on your property. And we proceeded, and I take full responsibility, I sent a letter to the state based on the information we had from the state of what the procedure was, saying that we were going to participate. So anybody that was acting on that in the community did it, and the state put it on their website, Newport News, is opting into the program. So anybody in the communities that were acting based on the information that I provided to the state. We have since gotten information and a legal opinion that city council would have to be the ones that would take action to authorize that. We have still, as recently as this afternoon, heard from the state that they don't necessarily think that that is the case. I am always going to defer. If I get a legal opinion from my city attorney, I'm going to defer to that. That's what he's there for. He's good at it. I'm going to defer to it. I can't tell you what we may or may not do in the future, but as long as there is any question whether or not council should have been the ones to do it, then I'm going to step back away from it. And again, I think that may be a good thing because it gives us an opportunity to have some more conversations with the community.
I thank you. I appreciate it.
I'm always going to be a criticized of it. It was what it was. We sent it out there based on the information that we had. And again, not trying to take a position for or against anything, just trying to give another tool to those neighborhoods because it is a permitted, sanctioned program by the state that a lot of the communities surrounding us participate in. Not making judgments for or against. In our best recommendation, we thought it made sense for the deer problems of overpopulation we're having in our community. It made sense to participate so that those communities that wanted to participate.
May I ask a short question?
Sure.
The reason I'm concerned about that, a few months back, some lady was walking the dog at Hyde Boulevard, when somebody with a photo arrow shot the dog because their dad wasn't here and came so close to the lady. There was big medical bills and everything. So when these things happen, who would we call, police department or what happened?
Absolutely, because we've gone back, we hear those we've heard all kind of we've heard all kind of information out there about animals. Okay, I was thought my voice was loud enough, I'm sorry. I think I'm telling my husband I'm not as loud as he is. No, we have heard those, but they're all anecdotal. I mean, when we go back and try and do some research and try and be able to somehow verify these things happen, we can't get that information. And no one works harder than our Parks and Rec people to try and make sure that things are well managed and they are as responsive as they can be. So if those things are happening, call Parks and Rec, call the police department, call my office, call someone so that we can verify and follow up if that's an issue, because there's something else going on. And let Michael talk to some of the restrictions before we have any other questions, because it may address some of those issues. That obviously would be a problem and something that should not happen. Oh, that someone walking on Hyden Boulevard was walking their dog and the dog got shot by a bow and arrow.
That happened maybe 6-7 months ago.
6 or 7, and our response was, if those things are happening,
Did it really happen?
I don't know if it really happened. We have no way to verify those kinds of issues. But and I'm not saying that it didn't, but I find it hard to believe that it wouldn't have made it somewhere to animal services or to our.
I heard that was a rumor. It just got rained up. I don't think they proved it at all.
And I'm not here to pass any kind of comment or judgment on that. I want you to know that we're always going to do everything we possibly can do to make sure the citizens of this community are safe. Okay, and I'd like to let Michael talk about what some of the issues.
Thank you, Madam Manager. I'm Michael Papasi. I'm the Director of Parks, Recreation, and Tourism Department. Also oversees park rangers, wildlife issues in the city. It oversees animal services. So certainly if there's ever an incident with an animal cruelty, it doesn't have to be related to hunting that you find a dog with an arrow in it. It could just be a case of animal cruelty. So certainly calls. The urban archery, can just so eliminate some of the confusion and some misinformation, no urban archery program September 1st. But as of October the 6th, we're into the state's legal hunting season. People can take bow and arrow and they can legally hunt, and we have no control over that. You might be surprised that last year the state publishes statistics on the number of deer killed in each jurisdiction because you had to have a deer tag and turn it in to be a legal hunter. There were 140 deer killed in Newport News by bow and arrow last year. There were 130 something the year before. There were 140 something the year before. Legal archery hunting, bow and arrow hunting, has been going on forever. You may not know that. So if you're thinking, okay, no more deer hunting, all we're doing is going back to the legal deer hunting season that's in place now. It runs through January the 5th of it. So people can hunt both antlerless and antlered deer legally with the appropriate license and training in the city of Newport News. Now, the big concern, and what I've seen on some of the blogs that I also subscribe to, are how can someone come on my property and force me to hunt, or hunters allowed on my property? State law, city ordinance covers you cannot hunt on someone's property without permission, period. That's state law for hunters, it's state law for fishermen coming on your property at a pond. And it's something that is regulated very strictly. Both the police department, our park rangers, the game wardens, the state game wardens are all able to enforce that. So certainly if you have someone wandering on your property, I can't tell you that if there was no hunting season, someone might just wander on your property. It's against the law. You can call someone, call the police department, call 911, and they'll dispatch someone. They'll dispatch a police officer or park ranger or a game warden to issue the appropriate charges or make the appropriate arrest, whatever is called for in that case. That's a big thing I keep seeing on the blogs is, we have passed an ordinance that now allows hunting. No. All we did was suggest a policy called Urban Archery Program. The state put in place back in 2002 to say, well, we've crammed the hunters into this 2-month period roughly. A lot of people are complaining they've got to rush things. A lot of people are complaining there's not enough time. All the Urban Archery Program does is let you start a month early and end the season 2 months later. It doesn't let you take more deer. The same limits are there. So as far as, the number of deer are going to go up as far as people being able to kill them. No, in fact, state statistics, when they look at how many more deer are killed in each jurisdiction based on the Urban Archery Program, it really evens out. It's just over a longer period of time. So that is something to please keep in mind. We have no control over it. The State Department of Game and Fisheries regulates that and issues rules and regulations that pertain to hunting.
Speak to the way you shoot.
Now, the ordinance also, both the city ordinance and the state policy or the state statute doesn't let you shoot across someone else's property. If you opted out of, and obviously those of you that are opposed to hunting say, I don't want it on my property. I don't want anyone coming on my property. I don't want it crossing my property. The city ordinance doesn't even let them shoot across your property. Your backdrop has to be safe. It's in fact, most archers, the reason none of you probably realize that it's been going on for years and years and years, is because they're restricted to, most of the time, the state mandates that someone's in an elevated platform, shooting down on the animal, so the arrow does not go beyond that. Now, there are people, you're going to say, I know someone that hunted and the arrow came over. It's the people who drive. Not everyone drives the way they're supposed to or follows the law. People may hunt inappropriately too, and that's why we have police officers and park rangers and game wardens to deal with that.
We have a couple of questions, and then we're going to kind of go aside because this is.
No, I don't want to.
Yeah, we're not going to take over the chief's meeting.
Yes, sir.
One second, this gentleman was first. 1 second, this gentleman was first, please. Okay, we'll get to you.
A lot of us just got a flyer on our doorknobs that said they are going to come on our property, they're going to erect deer stands, and they're going to kill deer on our properties. That is a safety issue.
I would like to have a copy of that flyer, please.
Now, I did look at a flyer that the Fisher's Landing folks had put out, and I read it carefully, and I sent a copy of it. And at the end of the flyer, it tells people you can either agree to allow hunting on your property, you can agree not to allow hunting on your property, but allow a hunter to recover a deer that wanders on your property that's injured, or you can opt out completely. I don't want anyone on my property, even if an injured deer comes on my property. No, you're trespassing into my property.
I've got my property posted.
If you're posted and someone hunts, they actually need written permission from you. Not just so-and-so gave you oral permission. If your property is posted appropriately, they need written permission. In fact, our rangers have long told people because this has been going on for decades, you really ought to have written permission from any property owner on land that you don't yourself own.
With the information that they
I would love to get that information because we need to be having a conversation with the folks that are putting the misinformation out there.
Sure.
Absolutely. This gentleman back here.
Yes, sir.
On the property, if you do have the right to hunt, how far from the dwelling can you bow hunt or shoot?
I know of no regulation that says you have to be a distance away from the dwelling. You can't shoot toward. I'm sorry.
You're supposed to be 200 feet or more from the church.
Only on Sundays when the service.
Our experts say only on Sundays when church is in service. But see, you're not going to allow someone to, this is private property. Unless the church gives the hunter permission to be on this property, or to shoot onto the property, or to come onto the property, you can't be on the church property. Now,
Distance between a dwelling and the proper shooting. You said that yourself. The proper background when he pulls the bow.
well, the bottom line is, if you own the house, you own the yard around it, you can shoot into the wall of your house if you want to. There is no state regulation that says you have to be a distance away from a dwelling. It's your backdrop. You have to be a safe hunter. You cannot shoot past your property line.
It should be a legal distance that you have to be from the dwelling.
Okay, thank you. That's good feedback, and that's part of why we need to continue the conversation. We're only going to take a couple more because,
Is there a restriction on the weapon that's used? There's a guy hunting with a 22 in back of my house, and I swear the deer are just laughing at him.
City ordinance prohibits the discharge of firearms.
anywhere in the city. You cannot hunt with a firearm in the city. You need to be calling folks and letting us know. That's, I don't know what else to
So
tell
your
you.
restriction is on
Yes,
bow and
ma'am.
arrow?
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question about the city of Newport News. There are some communities that try to let their community do both. Do we have, is there any relocation program for wildlife? Because we don't have, other than older neighborhoods, everything is just flattened in Newport News. And then it's like just, vacant buildings, vacant buildings, vacant buildings. There's no, are there any regulations about leaving anything anywhere for wildlife? And if we're going to destroy everything, why can't we spend a little money to relocate some of these? Because we have destroyed these deer. Maybe relocate some of these animals instead of obliterating them.
I wish I could tell you that translocation or relocation of deer works. In fact, the state had looked at it. A number of other states that consider it. There was a big project up at the Schlitz Audubon Center up in Milwaukee. And they decided the neighbors were overwhelmed with deer. Finally, to the point where all of them said, I don't care if you shoot them, you got to get rid of the deer. Well, Audubon Center figured we're a nature center. We're going to tranquilize them and move them to a different property. And they had special darts with transmitters, transponders, so you could find the deer when they actually succumbed to the tranquilizer. And they transferred the deer. Then they did a study, I guess it was about a year or two later, and it was found that very few of the deer had survived. Most deer are used to the habitat in which they grow up in. Move them to a new habitat usually puts them at a serious disadvantage. Of course, the state would tell us, which I don't have an answer for, beyond the survivability being low in moving a deer, is we're so overloaded with deer everywhere in the state. Where would you move them to? Because we wouldn't want someone bringing a load of deer here, even to Newport News Park. It's a pretty good deer population. It's made for wildlife, but I would be the first one to oppose, someone who's going to truck a load of deer from another location. It just further stresses the limited resources that the deer have to eat and live off of.
This gentleman right here says, we're only going to take a couple more, and I understand, but unfortunately, we kind of took over this meeting, and that wasn't the intent. And I think there's some other folks here we want to be respectful of, because this kind of